So one of the first things is for people who RSVP'd, we emailed everyone on that list and asked if they wanted a downsize guidebook. So hopefully you have responded to that and have either received your book or your book is in the mail. And if you haven't responded to that and would like the guidebook, which I highly recommend, unless you already have a copy, because if you already have a copy, you don't need two. That's one of the first steps in downsizing. Know your limit. And so, but we'd be happy to send it. So this presentation, PowerPoint presentation that I'm giving today is based on that book, and there's some really good information in the book. So I really recommend that everyone get the book. It's made to be used. You can write in it. There's an area where you can go room by room in your house and make notes. And it's just a really great tool to use in your downsizing. So just a little bit of information about me. My name is Arendt, and I have been at Aljoya since we opened almost 12 years ago now. And before that, I worked as a senior move manager for a company that helped people move most often into retirement communities, but sometimes, in just basically downsizing and getting into smaller spaces. So I've had a lot of experience over the years working with people both in their homes, and now at Aljoya, my role is when someone chooses an apartment, I can help them with their floor plan, which is the very first most important thing, and it's a great stress reliever. My services are part of the service that we provide here, so they're complimentary to you. And so when you reserve an apartment, I come along with it, and so I can help you. So I have learned many things as I have been going along with helping people move. And one of the first most important things that I want to cover is that you don't want to keep putting off downsizing, because at some point, whether you plan on staying in your home forever, that's great, but someone's going to have to clean out that home eventually, because none of us have a permanent ticket to this life, right? There's an end date somewhere. And so rather than leave it for someone else to do, which really creates a lot of turmoil at that time, it's really best that you, like we all learn as children, put away your tools, put away your toys, and get everything nice and tidy. So I hope you don't wait. What I see often, very often, is that when people choose an apartment, then they think about downsizing. And when you've already made a decision to move, that at some point, that is when you need to really start that work. Because if you have to do it all at once, when you're trying to figure out what you're going to bring and how are we working our finances and when are we going to do this, and all of that is very stressful. So to add all the stuff left in your house that maybe you haven't really seen in yours can be just really adds to the stress level. So if I say, if anything else, start today. And you know that we've had a lot of time over the last few months, all of us, to stay in our homes. And so I don't know if you have thought about or looked around your home to see what you have in there and see what makes you really happy, and maybe see the things that you just really don't need. So we're sort of in that perfect situation where all of our outside activities that kept us really busy and kept us from doing maybe some of our house cleaning things, we have all the time in the world right now to do it. And so maybe if you're one of those puzzle people working on those puzzles, maybe you can set that aside a little bit and work on the puzzle of your home and the things that make you happy and the things that you can just let go of. So I think that we can all learn. We collect things over our lifetime, and I don't know how you feel, but I'm getting older too. And I have found that there are many things that I used to keep and do that I'm not interested in it anymore. And it's kind of feels like a burden to me that I really need to let some of those things go. So I'm working on my project. So I hope you're working on yours. So there are some really good reasons, which I just covered, why you should start doing this project now. It feels so good when you start letting things go. And it's a perfect time for you to communicate with your families to see if there's anything that they might want, which for the most part, the answer is going to be no on that. That's what we've been hearing more and more. When I first started doing this presentation and when I was out working in people's homes, the family situation was completely different than it is right now. Back then, it was everyone fighting for it. I want it, I want it. Mom said I could have it. And now it's like, you take it, I don't want it. So don't expect your family is going to want things. And be sure that you're checking not just with your own children, but their children. Because sometimes a lot kids, your grandkids, are starting their new life independently and maybe have homes that they need to put something in right now while they're building their savings account. Also, it's going to give you more space. It's really going to give you a sense of what's important to you, what you can use and what you don't need anymore, and what really makes you happy. I do that often as I walk through my house, room by room. I just look at things, and it drives my husband crazy because he's a saver and I'm a thrower. But I'm like, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. But even if you do nothing else, you can make some decisions. And so right now it's a little difficult maybe to actually be able to take things someplace because, and I would really recommend that you check before you go to Goodwill or someplace to drop things off to make sure that A, they're open, B, they're taking things, and B, what are they taking? Because I know right now they were closed for a period of time, and right now they have a lot of furniture. So furniture might be really difficult to donate. So just take that into consideration. But if nothing else, if you just make decisions about what you want done, we won't be in this COVID time forever. And when we get out of it, then you'll be set to go. And also, one of the things I like about that is because a lot of times people think, what if I miss it? Well, if you put it in a box now, put it out of the way someplace. I have boxes actually in different areas of my home full of things just sitting there. And if it has to sit there for a period of time and you never go in that box to pull that something out, you know you can just get rid of it. So you're getting a little bit of extra time for that. And so, you really have time to be thoughtful about it now and really decide what is most important to you and how you want. Imagine if everything in your house was something that you really, really loved or use every day. And all the other stuff, some of it you may need for a time before you know what your future plans are, but other things, are just easy to let go of. So we're going to take a little leap here now. I'm asking you to have a little faith and just go with me on this. First of all, when you start doing this, you can expect that you're going to get emotional. You're going to run into things you forgot you had that have been buried in drawers or back in the garage somewhere or down in the basement in a box that you forgot about. And I was just doing this the other day, as a matter of fact, I'll tell you. I opened up just the top drawer of my nightstand and started looking at some of the things in there, and I found some remarkable letters that were very touching to me and my family. One I had written, one that was written to me by my father, and it was very emotional. I forgot completely that I had those letters. So expect emotion. And then also, we're going to talk about making a plan and then how to work that plan. Those are the important topics today. So leap with me. Setting goals is very important, and because you need to give yourself some sort of direction. So what are you looking for? Are you just trying to remove the things that don't work in your house anymore, those old electronics and things like that? Are you looking for pieces that you really love and that you would always want to have with you? Do you just want to talk with your family and get them involved in this to see if there's anything they want? And then there's all those things that maybe you can donate to your favorite charity if and when that, not if, but when that becomes possible, because that is such a great thing to be able to let other people have the things that we don't use and are just getting dusty and taking up space. And especially right now, there's a lot of unemployed people because of COVID and just generally anyway. So you could be doing a really good thing for other people. And selling some pieces can be an option. I don't think you should think that you're ever going to get what you paid for something. Know that collectibles, things that you might have collected over the years that once, were really popular and really had the promise of making money for you in the end, aren't so collectible anymore, and people don't want them. So anything that you bought as a collectible that was advertised as a collectible basically has no value to it, just so you know, because the market is flooded with them. Another good reason really that you should start this process now is that everyone's doing it. And so the sooner you get going on it, the easier it's going to be for you to find new homes for things. And the last thing on this list is just getting rid of the junk. We all have just junk, the things that don't work anymore, or maybe we don't, maybe it's just me, but I certainly have done that. And so there's good resources out there for just having things hauled away. Either you can leave them out on your street and have the garbage collectors come and get them. They have, you can call your garbage company because there's a fee for it, but they usually will let you put things out. But also there is trash haulers that will also take things away. So I have a really good resource for that that I will share with you in a little while. So once you start writing down, once you start figuring out what your goals are, it's really important to write them down and put them somewhere. Be nice if you put them somewhere where you could see them. But even if you don't do that, by writing them down, it gets your brain working and it starts working the solution to your goals without you even really being aware of it. I have found lists that I have made in the past of things I wanted to get done, and then it was in a book. I put it away. I found the book a year or two later and looked at it and went, check, 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 check. I did all those things without really even being too aware that, in fact, I was working, checking things off my list. So really important to write things down. Just like anything in life, you have to have a plan for things. You don't decide you're going to go on vacation. Remember when we used to do that? But you don't plan a vacation without planning a vacation. You don't go to the airport and say, gee, honey, where should we go? With no suitcases and no idea. So everything worthwhile has a plan. So the next thing you want to do is to create a timeline. And right now, maybe your calendar is not quite so full as it was before, since we're pretty much kept, close to home, and a lot of activities that we used to engage in, and clubs and bridge games and whatever aren't happening right now. So you might have a little time. So get your calendar out and create some time in it. Write it down so it becomes just like anything else. Oh, I'm going to lunch with my friend, and oh, I'm working for 15 minutes on my downsize project today. And so write those things down so that it makes you a little bit more accountable for doing those tasks. And so you can put, so if you actually are planning a move soon, then you really need to target your dates. You really need to use that calendar, and it helps keep you busy and organized. So, and especially if you have a move and you know what date that's going to be, then you have to kind of work yourself backwards so you stay really busy. And then you can take some of those major goals down. You're just going to break them down into tasks of what do I need to do I need to call a junk hauler. So how do I do that, and where do I find them? Or maybe I should call the garbage company. So you're writing that stuff down so that you can make those arrangements. And to-do lists are so important. I don't know if any of you keep to-do lists, but once I started helping people move and working here, I have to have a to-do list. I write everything down. I get interrupted many times during the day in what I'm doing. And if I didn't have my to-do list so that I could go back to what I was working on before I was called to do something else, nothing would get done. To-do lists are great. And it's such a great feeling when you start checking things off your list. It makes you feel really good. So definitely have to-do lists. Again, you may not be able to meet with your families as much, and if you do, make sure you wear your mask, stay your distance, but talk to your family and really find out what it is they want or don't want. And if there is things they want, tell them to come over and get them now rather than wait. Because, oftentimes people will say, yeah, mom, dad, I want it, but you hold on to it for me for now. Let's not do that. And so in the process of all this, you need to start asking questions about why you're doing this and how important things are to you. For me, I'm going to show you a list, but I've really kind of thought of other questions during the last few months of just how important things were to me in the house. And my house, I call my house, and actually a specific room in my house, I call it my sanctuary. And I have only my favorite things in there. And I love it. And it makes me feel so good. So if I'm spending more time at home, then I want to feel really good about the space I'm in. Sometimes it's a little struggle for my husband, because when we share a space, we have different ideas of what sanctuary might look like, but you can work that out. So make sure you ask yourself the right questions about what really is special or not special to you. And then as you're going through things, some of the questions: does this enhance my life? Does it really fit my space? And then also, does it fit my lifestyle these days, or for the last 10 years? And do I really use it? How many things do we have in our house that we keep because we might use it someday? I know I struggle with that, and especially in the kitchen, all those little gadgets and different bigger pieces of equipment that you might use someday. And really, I think if it wasn't there, you wouldn't miss it too much. But do I really use this is a really good question. Do I need it? And then for people who have collections, or do I, and sometimes it's dishes. Let's talk dishes a little bit, because sometimes we have not just one set of dishes, we have several sets of dishes. And do we need all of that? And maybe, right now it's okay to have them, but ultimately choose what is your favorite? What would you like to use? And when we talk about dishes, we can talk about china, which any china these days that have flowery patterns, which I inherited some from my husband's aunt, great aunt, with a flowery pattern. I've used um, maybe 3 times in 40 years. Um, and have all the papers. My husband just showed it to me the other day. He says, "This is the paper about how valuable this china is." And I said, "You can just throw that paper away, because there is really probably no value. It's only valuable to someone who wants to buy it." And so you can check with. There are some. I would call the thrift stores for children's, because sometimes around the holidays they will take china and crystal and things like that. But maybe also if you have other sets of things that you don't need the full set of, you can mix and match them a little bit and get rid of some of them. And then really, do I like this? And with clothes, really important to go through our clothes. I know it can be really hard to go through clothes. I recently moved someone in that had so many boxes of clothes, and it's really kind of, you only have so much closet space. And so it's important to go through clothes and let things go. And really those things that you've never worn before for a long time. And you can tell that by simply some of the things when you hang up, when you hang an item up in your closet, when you wear it, when you are done with it, you can just turn the hanger in the opposite direction. And then after several months, you can just look and see how many hangers have been turned and how many are just sitting there, not having worn them. I struggle with this because I like clothes, but there's also just so much that we really use and have need for. And even those special items that were really memorable to you, how many people still have their wedding dress? I recently let mine go. I fully intended on making a baptismal gown out of it for my children and never did. And since they're grown, I never will. So, and it only hurts for a little while. Sometimes it's fun to try them on to see if they still fit. And, but once you make that decision for those special items that maybe have a memory from a special event, once you make that decision to let them go, it just really, you forget about it fairly soon afterwards, and life goes on. So when you're working on your downsizing, you want to have equipment around you. You want to have maybe be able to get some boxes, bags, garbage bags are great. Markers, you want to make sure that when you're filling boxes full of items, especially if it's something you're going to keep, but you want to just put it in a box, you want to list on the outside. And I like to put it on a piece of paper and tape it to the box. That way you can reuse a box and not get confused by too much writing of what's in it. We did a move once where they were having their home staged, which happens often. And so certain items were taken down because no personal items can be, the realtors don't want any personal items to be shown. And so those items were put in a box in the garage, and they wrote on the box what was in them. Well, then when it came, the house sold, and they were reusing those boxes to pack items they moved, they didn't change the writing on them. And so when the movers came, with the boxes, everything just got mixed up from room to room, and it really slowed down the move, and that costs you money because movers work on time. So take that information, write it on a piece of paper, and stick it on your box. Tape it on there, and so if you have all of your tools together, everything that you're going to use, maybe notepads for making notes, tape, and all of that stuff, you have it in one spot close to you. And in the book, there's a whole list. So I'm not going to go over every little thing. But if you keep it in one spot, then when you're working on your project, you have everything that you need to work on your project with you, and you don't spend your valuable time looking for where is the tape gun. So get your tools together. So now we're going to talk about the actual downsize and how to go about doing that. So I always say it's like working out, starting an exercise program. If your goal is to walk 3 miles, you don't go and walk 3 miles on the first day, probably. You're going to work up to it. And so you want to do that with downsizing. So you want to start in a small space, maybe for a short amount of time. Clean out a drawer. Just pick a drawer and clean out a drawer. And also do what you know first. That's the obvious things of that you know right now. There are things in your house that you don't want, and it's just maybe a matter of what do I do with them. Start collecting those things together and putting it somewhere together, so that once you remove those things, those really easy, obvious things, then you will start seeing some more clarity. And when group things together, like things together, so maybe you want to pull out all your pots and pans or open up the cabinets where your pots and pans are and choose the ones that you use all the time, and then look at the ones that you haven't seen the light of day in quite a while, and see if maybe those were items that were used at a different time in life when we were doing more big dinners and had more activity, and maybe some of those things can be let go of. Or maybe they're your collections, and if you bring them all together, it will help you to determine what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. So begin in a less personal space. So you want to make this, again, as easy on you emotionally as you can. So you don't want to go into the room where all of the decisions are going to be hard decisions. You want to start easy. So maybe it's if you've been in your home for a long time, you have extra bedrooms that maybe aren't being used, or maybe they're being used sort of as a storage room. And so I call that room, some people call it a guest room, but I call that room, I don't know what to do with this, so I'll just put it in here room. So that might be a good room to start with and clear out, and just start going. If it's a bedroom and there's a dresser in there, just start going through the drawers, anything that's piled on top of anything that might be sitting on the bed, in the closet, clean that out. And even if you leave it there, but you've put it in bags of things you know you want to let go of, you've put in bags or you've put in boxes, then that's good. And then you can move on to the next. Start with a single drawer and set a timer. This is one of my favorite things to do. You can set a timer. So when you are working on a downsize project, you can work for as little as 15 minutes or as much as 3 hours. And 3 hours is when you are on a full roll. You've been downsizing for a while and you're really motivated. Otherwise, it's really tiring. And after about 2 hours, it's hard to make decisions. You get a little too emotional or tired, and then you might make some decisions that you are going to eventually regret. So it's a big job, and by breaking it down into rooms, or even you can take a room and divide it. My husband and I cleaned out our garage for the second or third time in the last several years. It seems to always catch things. And we took that garage and we broke it down into 4 sections. And I put him over in one corner working on his workbench, and I went to the other corner and worked on my garden equipment. And we had a plan for in the middle of the garage. We actually took the car out. We could get a car in our garage, so it can't be that bad. But we would put boxes that we marked for donation and boxes we marked for trash, and then bags that we could put trash in too. So we had it all marked, and then we just worked in our own space and use those tools. It worked really well, and we worked for not more than 2 hours. In about 2 hours, you start getting chippy with each other. At least we do. And so then it's time to stop as soon as you're doing that. And then go do something fun, and you can come back to it later. But if you start with a single drawer, just cleaning out a drawer, I guarantee you, if you please, when you get done with this today, if you have time, open a drawer and just clean out the drawer, reorganize it, throw away the things that aren't usable, pull out the things that you have duplicates of, and put them in your donate pile. And just get that really nicely organized. I guarantee you, when you're feeling bad, just open that drawer after it's done. You're going to feel really happy about it. And if it's a drawer that has letters and pictures, like the drawer that I opened up this last weekend and found those letters, that actually stopped me from doing the rest of the drawer, because I sat down and I found an old journal of mine. I sat down, I started reading it, I read those letters, and that was the end of my project. So don't do that. You put those things, when you're seriously working, you put those things aside, and then later in the day, when you're on your downtime, when you're just relaxing, when there's nothing good to watch on TV, and you've probably seen it all by now, that's when you can start going through those things. And it's really nice to do it, but not when you're on the clock and doing your downsizing. You have a box that says memorabilia, a box that says pictures, and you just put those items in there. And then you can separate them out later. And speaking of pictures, let's talk about that for a moment. We probably have a lot of pictures in our house that aren't just on our cell phone anymore, but those pictures that for years we bought film and took pictures and had the film processed, and the pictures came back, and often they got to the point where they come back in duplicate, so we had 2 of everything. Didn't matter if it was a good picture or a bad picture, we had 2 of them. And if it was blurry or whatever, we tended to keep them because we spent good money on that, right? But really not doing any good. Have you looked at pictures from travels where you met people along the way and you said, who are these people? Or pictures of just scenery, which after a while, you can go on the computer and find that same place and have a much lovelier picture of the scenery. So those things maybe you can just separate out and get rid of. I took some of my pictures of family from earlier when the kids, my brothers, and their children, when they were younger, and I made, I bought some cardstock, and I bought those little corners for the picture that you can put pictures on, and I made greeting cards, holiday cards, birthday cards, and put the picture of that person on it for when they were younger. It was quite the talk during the holiday season, I will have you know. So also, the next thing I'm going to talk about are these colored dots. And you can buy those at any, drugstore, hardware store. They're just little round colored dots. And they are very nice to be able to label things. So usually they come, you can buy packs in 4 colors, but you can also buy other packs that are just one color, the whole pack. So whatever works for you. So what I did when we were out working, what I often tell people is the green one is for everything you want to keep, and or if you're going to move it to a new location, then that's something you're keeping. So you can use that. The blue item is either things you want to sell, or maybe when you're moving, those are the items that you want to go into your storage locker here at Aljoya. So because everyone gets a storage locker, so it's that works well for that. And then the yellow I like to use for anything that I'm going to maybe give to someone, whether it's family, friends, or a specific donation, just so that you can write on that and you can see through that yellow color pretty easily. And then red are things you're going to donate, or maybe it's just things that you just want out of the house. However, I'm just trying to remember because I just helped someone move recently and they used those dots for completely different uses. One woman used them, she had like 3 children and each one had their own color. And she gave it to them so that they could go around and choose what furniture or things that they wanted. That was back a few years when people still wanted that. And again, bags. There's your black bag, which is usually the big hefty bags that are pretty sturdy, and then there's the white, more garbage bag ones. Those are really great too for containing things. The black I always use for things that are going to be trashed, and I use those because they're usually heftier. And then the other ones are for things that you're keeping, that maybe even you're moving or you want to keep, but you want to keep fresh. It can be for linens, towels, any of that kind of clothes, any of that kind of thing. But again, that helps to really identify pieces so that you know, oh, what did I do? I got ahead of myself. So if you are going to give things to family or friends, you should ask them now. And even if they said a while ago that they wanted them, you might want to check with them again. And you know, when things are more open, so your family or friends want to gather together, it's difficult to do that in your home these days or anywhere, because and definitely wear your mask, but just having others help you is wonderful. And so you can give them some tasks so you don't have to do everything yourself. And you can also hire people. There are great companies out there. They're called senior move management companies. And there's you can just go online and look that up, and you'll get a lot of information for companies in your area. We use the Hanson Brothers Move Management Company quite often, and they can come out and help you with your downsizing. You can call them and ask them questions and ask what resources, and I would really recommend that you do that. You can call them up and say, I have this thing I want to donate, and who's taking it now? I can give you their number. I'll give it to you right now if you have something to write it on. It is 206-257-4314. And they can definitely help you. They can help you if you need, maybe you need to find a resource for you're going to move and you want to see how much you can, you have a lot of items and maybe you can sell them. And so maybe you want to have a sale of some sort. So anyway, and then again, allow yourself time to work on your project. I cannot stress that enough. I cannot stress that enough, that you do that. Okay, so some of the things when you are packing up things, either for donation or for a future move at some point, is to just, I like to have a white screen here. You want to wrap things separately, so you don't want to take a piece of paper and wrap items together. You want to make sure you at least put paper or something in between them, or they will very easily break. And I really do not recommend that you use bubble wrap. I know a lot of people feel like their precious things will be really safe in bubble wrap, but here's the thing with that. When you look at bubble wrap, first of all, it's really expensive. But when you look at bubble wrap for all those little pillows, there's a flat area all around it. And when you wrap something up in that, if there's an edge of your precious item that is on that flat part, and then you put it in a box with a lot of other items, there's a good chance that it could get bumped and chipped. And so it really, I think, is a false sense of security. And plus, once you wrap it up, you have to tape it. It's just laborious. It's not easy to work with, and I have a much better option for you that will also save you money. And that is, before I get to this, that is just newsprint, which is the paper that they use to print newspapers. That's what all the movers have. You can buy it at Home Depot. You can buy it maybe even at Costco. And that is, and the movers will give you some or sell you some. That is great paper. It rips really nice if you don't need the whole sheet, because it comes in a big sheet, like the full size of a newspaper. And it works really well. So if you're putting plates in a box for storage or for moving, you want to set them up vertically, not horizontal, because they will have a much greater chance of breaking if their whole surface is flat and things are piled on top of them, and you're moving the boxes or you're piling things on top of them. It's just the pressure of that can break them. You can use linens to cushion things, and clothes, pillows, any of that kind of stuff to cushion around boxes. It's important to do that. And you can leave your clothes in dresser drawers. If you're moving anything light, anything like jewelry or small items that sometimes people put in their dresser drawers, you want to take out and put that somewhere else, because when the movers come, they're going to put shrink wrap around everything, and then they're going to turn it on its end to get it out the door and in the truck and out of the truck. It might move around a lot, and so you don't want to worry about losing things, having to fall behind the drawer and then maybe even fall out and get lost. And so take those kind of things out, but usually clothes can stay in, depending upon how sturdy your dresser is, but most of them are sturdy enough. And then again, label the contents of your boxes and the room that they're going to, or if it's just in your home, label what's in there and label maybe what you want done with it at some point, so that when you're able to move them along out your door, you'll know what it is without having to open it up and kind of sift through it again. So are there, and again, don't use newspaper. So like I said, you want to use newsprint, but newspaper is, all that ink comes off on everything, gets all over your hands. So when you put your hand down on a counter or against the wall or in the doorway, you have handprints everywhere of that. So and then it can get on things and is not always easy to get off. Don't put combustible items in any box, and don't overstuff your boxes so that things poke out and then they get brushed up against another box, and that can also be a problem. And so make sure you use cushioning, but not too much. How's that? So now what do we do with the things that we don't want? What are our options? I have a resource page here If you have a cell phone or something and you're not using it to watch this presentation, you can just take a picture of this, but you can also just email Larry and David and say, I would like a copy of some of those resources. We'd be happy to mail those out to you. And the number for the move management company that I talked about is written right on this page. So there's some different resources that you can check on the computer that would be great resources. One of these that I want to talk about for recycling is that first one up there that says One Green Planet. If you can see that, that's in Renton, and they take almost everything. There is a huge long list on the computer of the things that they will take and a very small list of the things they won't take. So, but you're going to have to take it to them. But that is a great resource. The other resource that I absolutely love is this King County Solid Waste Take It Back program. And those are for all of your old towels that are raggy, that maybe even you used for cleaning things, for your clothes that really aren't fit to be donated anymore, socks that have holes in them, shoes that are really worn out, or maybe you only have one up, just all of those things that normally we would just throw away, or we would just hang on to because we didn't want to throw them away. We didn't know what to do with it. If you put those things in a bag, one of those big black bags maybe, or the white bag, and put a note on it that you tape on there that says take it back, you can drop that off. And again, I would check now, but most donation places will take those, and then they get sent over to be used. And what they use them for is they can make insulation out of that. They use that stuff for everything. They also go through it all, and sometimes there's items in there that maybe we won't wear anymore, that we don't see as usable, but maybe they can be shipped over to other countries where they would be of use. Also, you can think of sometimes those old blankets and towels and such. You can check with your Humane Society to see if they're interested in that, different places like that. And so this other area here on the bottom that says neighborhood groups, there's different ones. One of the most popular one is Nextdoor, and that's a fairly safe group to use because it's you have to join it, and you have to be within the boundaries of your neighborhood for them to let you join it. And so you know that everyone that's seeing your items that you want to give away or sell or whatever is in your neighborhood. So it's fairly safe. It's, I think, safer than Craigslist by far for items that you might just want to, put out and say, come and get it. And then books are always popular. Check with your library to see if they want books. Electronic equipment too is also very popular, and even equipment that doesn't work. That is getting more and more popular. So I would check with your favorite donation place to see what they want. Sometimes they might have a restriction as how many items that they'll take, but it's really worth looking at and seeing. So how to sell items. The first one is estate sales, and I was talking about that a little bit earlier. Estate sales are really great, but you have to be moving and you have to have moved, because they don't do estate sales when you're still in the house. But so if you are thinking that you are going to move, and you are thinking that you're in an area that you can have an estate sale, some areas you can't, condominiums maybe not so much. It's good to check in with them soon, very soon, sooner than later, because then they'll tell you what to keep, what to get rid of. And estate sales are very different than they used to be. It used to be a lot of antiques and really nice fine things, but now it's like really sort of a glorified garage sale. You can even leave food in your cupboards that you don't want to take with you, even if it's been opened. People will buy it. Remarkable, but they will. And so it's a great resource for people who are moving and want to have an estate sale, but they're busy. And I'm not sure what estate sale companies are doing right now in this summer and how they're managing that. So I would check with them. Consignment stores is an option, can be cumbersome, can take you a long time to get your money. Everything has to be in really great shape and fairly current. Or maybe if it's closed, maybe if it's really old so that it's popular again, they might take that. But you have to bring the things to them, and then you might bring them a lot and they take a little, and you have to take everything back home with you. And the longer it stays in the store, the less money you're going to make. So an option, but I've always just thought I could probably find someone to buy this and make a few cents, but I can also just donate it and be done with it. And I often will take that option. Auction houses are another great option, and they're running differently now than they perhaps used to, and so they're doing almost an estate sale kind of option, or they have been. So you can check with auction houses too. And here I've got Craigslist, but you're going to see X over that. I would not use that. You don't want strangers coming to your house from you don't even know where to look at your things. I wouldn't let them come to my house. So, and then the neighborhood groups like Nextdoor. So use Nextdoor, forget about Craigslist. And when you're hiring a mover, now when you're moving to Aljoya, you don't have to worry about that so much. If you have a new mover you like, great. But if you're not sure, that's one of the things I do. I help you find a move company. And right now we're moving in quite a few people. There's quite a list of people that are moving in, and we're using different movers. One person said, I have my favorite mover. For every move we've had for years, they've been really helpful. So they're using them. And so the important thing to know about a moving company is you want to make sure the moving industry is regulated. So you want to make sure that they are following those regulations and that they have a UTC permit. So sometimes people want to just go on the cheap and get the cheapest mover, but often they don't have that license, and also they might not be as helpful if they break anything and you want it repaired for them to do that. So just be aware of that. Sometimes it's really worth it to get a good mover, because if you have downsized and you're bringing the best of your life with you, it would be nice if it got there in one piece. And things can happen on a move. Accidents can happen, but you want a company that's going to stand back behind it and find a way to repair it. Hanson Brothers has some great resources for that, for different items if things get damaged. But I'm sure other movers do too. I just have more of a relationship with them. And then the items that you would move yourself would be your documents that are important to you, certainly your passport, any of your marriage license, birth certificates, any of those important papers that you don't want to get lost. Sometimes it's just a feeling of feeling secure that you know where they are. And definitely any fine jewelry you have, I would just put it in a bag. Anything along those lines that are really, really important to you, you can move yourself. I do, though, a lot of times people say that they're going to pack all of their own fine items that they love themselves and move it over. And I don't always agree with that because movers are really professional at packing things. So sometimes if you're piling your art in the back of your car and driving it over, and then on the way, a dog runs out in front of your car and you slam on your brakes, you can get damage on your work. Whereas if it's packaged properly, that won't happen. So just think about things like that. Are there any questions? David, do you know, have any questions occurred?
Let's see here. Yeah, you guys can enter in any questions that you might have right now. Don't see any.
Yep. If you have a question, you can go into the chat and write something down, and we will answer it. So at the end, it doesn't look like we have any questions, and I've reached the end of my presentation. So again, I'll say if you want this Downsize guidebook and you don't have it, just email us and we'll make sure you get a copy. And if there's any questions you have that you think of, you can put those in there and I'll respond to them. And also, if there are any other resources you might be interested in, I can help you with that. I know recently I spoke with Beth Schmidt. She's with Hanson Brothers Move Management, and she said the best thing to do right now is to call if you have places that you like to bring things, to call them before you go to make sure they're accepting things and what they're accepting and what their timing might be on that. So that is probably the best thing you can do. So we are just about done here. I have a short video of a beautiful apartment that's available here at Aljoya that we're going to put up for you to see. But I hope I was helpful today, and I hope that you will start working on your projects. And this is a quote from someone who lives here. And well, actually, she moved south to Alabama, I think, to be by her daughter eventually. But she's a lovely lady, and she just felt really good and relieved after she did her downsizing. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the time. And here's the video.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Happy downsizing.